Okay. We all, is the gang all here, as they used to say? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. Uh, Happy New Year, everybody. As we start a new year with a new CEO, new and enthusiasm and determination to make us successful and to work hard as possible to get there. My name is Stuart Rabinowitz. I'm the oldest member of the board, so I get to speak first. No, I'm also, that's true, but I'm also chair, as you know. Let me take the roll call. So I ask the other board members to introduce themselves and say here, starting on my left with Dean.
Good afternoon, Amy Flores, present.
I'll talk about him in a minute.
Lisa Warren here.
Jason Abelov.
Rory Lansman. I still can count to seven, and I think that we're all here, and thus we have a quorum, and we can open the meeting. As we open all of our meetings, the first item on the agenda, before I introduce our new CEO to you, is the exciting approval of the minutes from our last meeting of December 2nd. Those minutes have been posted online and shared with all members in their packets. Anybody have any correction to the minutes? Oh, anybody have any correction to the minutes? No? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting? Dean, usually you're a seconder, but this is good. You're stepping up. Is there a second? Second. Any comment, any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion is adopted. So let me begin with the star of our meeting today, and that is with a brief report, a presentation by our new CEO, Tom Stokes. I can tell you that the board is thrilled to have Tom on board. To say he's new is true in his official position, but he has been ever since we announced his appointment. He's been working hard to learn about NUMAC and A. Holly Patterson as humanly possible. He's been doing his old job and his new job, even though he's not officially started until this past Monday. He's experienced, knowledgeable, dynamic, and the board selected him out of an incredibly strong pool of applicants, and we are absolutely confident he's going to lead all of us to success, which means not just the maintenance of Nassau County's only safety net hospital, but its enhancement and stability. So, Tom, I turn the podium over to you. It's the last time I'll say something nice about you.
We're good. How's that, folks? Everyone can hear? Perfect. All right, much better than day one for those of you who were here day one. I think I had that mic and it didn't work so well. Actually, this isn't working so well either. What if I hold it? It's cutting out. All right, we'll give it a whirl. Otherwise, I'll just shout. It's all good. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I think this has been a long time coming, and we've been working on this for what was the beginning of the process about 3-4 months ago. This is going in and out. So 3 or 4 years ago, yeah, something to that effect, right? So what I first off want to do is, and I know there'll be acknowledgments later on, but thank Dr. Becker for his service to NUMIC. Sure, of course. Especially at a critical juncture where there was no leadership at the hospital. I'm just going to wing it because this thing isn't working. Is that fine? Okay. Can you all hear me in the back? Okay. Do you need this for minutes? What's that? Okay. How's that? In and out still, right? Okay. Amazing. All right. So who's managing the capital project? Is Let's go ahead and add this one to it, please. So first off, I just want to thank Dr. Becker for his service to Newmick, especially at a critical juncture where there was sort of a void of leadership. I also want to recognize the leadership team and thank them for their transition efforts over the last 2 months. As Chairman Rubinowitz mentioned, I've been as neck deep as I possibly can while I'm transitioning while I was transitioning at Weill Cornell and spending time with the leadership team, just getting me up to speed. So the reason for that is so that we can come in and have a running start and really move it forward. And so thank you for that. I also want to thank the board for their support, but more importantly, their trust in me as the next president and CEO of the Nassau Healthcare Corporation. I've met with the facilities team, met with hundreds of employees, hosted a group introductory meeting right in this forum right here with chairs, administrators, and department leaders. I've toured the emergency department and have met separately actually, with the executive leadership, HR, and the CSEA local leadership, which is over to my left, hello. And that was all just on day one. So it's been a heck of a ride already, and multiple meetings since then, just to get things moving and say hi. And one of my promises when we were going through the interview process was I was going to be the guy to show up in the cafeteria every day. I'm sad to say that's only happened once so far, but I will, make that my New Year's resolution and make sure that I'm showing up and highly visible. So look forward to speaking with you all. Let me just say, I've met some incredible people just over the last 3.5 days, and this just highlights the good that exists here at Newmick. And I say Newmick because I'm looking at Joe, and we're going to be going over to CA Hawley-Patterson as well, and I want to make sure that we continue talking about us as the Nassau Healthcare Corporation, and it's just not Newmick, but it's also A. Hawley-Patterson as well. So just a few people I just want to give you a sense of, and this is my first few days. So Josephine, a medical assistant in employee health, who actually said a prayer for me as she was taking my blood pressure. After seeing the numbers, I know why. So we need to do a little bit of work there. Mike, and I really hope this gets back to him. I'm calling him Mike, the MacGyver of HVAC in facilities, who talked me through, after seeing the physical plant and the deterioration of some of these steam pipes and chillers and whatever. This guy is amazing. He's looking at splits in pipes. He's doing everything he possibly can because he knows we don't have the money to repair these things. So he actually walked me through, when he sees a split pipe, how he goes ahead and tapes it, clamps it, makes sure that we can save it for another 6 months if we can. Absolutely amazing. And then finally, compliments to the ED staff. After speaking with a patient last night who had been in a car accident, we just happened to be walking through, got word that this patient was here. Went to go have a conversation with him, spoke with the family for probably about 10-15 minutes. Highly complimentary of the care provided to him and his family, and extraordinarily grateful. These are the stories that we need to get out to the public. There's been a whole lot of bad news, a whole lot of politics, a whole lot of the finances we need to fix. Yes, absolutely. But this is it. And, we have a lot of work to do. There's no doubt. So in this presentation, I intend to first present a financial update. We're then going to dive into an abbreviated version of a presentation that I provided to the board about 3 months ago during that CEO finalist interview. This is going to be an abbreviated version because I think we spoke for probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours in that first round, and this one's going to be cut down to about 15 minutes, so we're going to breeze through. And if I can do okay with the hand-eye coordination, we'll try to change this without shutting everything off. Okay. So first, thanks to Rich and Sam for pulling together the financial update here. And these are the year-to-date November 2025 financials. Focused on the middle column here, 2025 actual. So we have $531 million in operating revenues, $630 million in operating expenses as an offset, leads us to a $99 million loss before OPEB liability and pension obligations, which are about $19 million. Total loss year to date is about $118 million, and the margin is a negative 22%. So just some high level observations, and we really need to view these variances on a year to date basis, or I'm sorry, year over year basis instead of budget to actual. As you can see here, there's a pretty wide variance between the budget and the actual. So we're going to focus on the year over year. To the left is the 2024. And the net patient revenue is actually down by $25 million year over year due to declines in pneumic discharges, 8%, ED visits, 11%, and A. Holly Patterson patient volume at 5%. Other operating revenue, which includes state aid, and in this case for 2025, $25 million in additional New York State funding for the VAPAP program. In addition to that, you'll see that other operating expense is down because of reductions in temp agency staff. We have offsetting increased consulting fees, but we also have lower laboratory, medical, and surgical expenses related to that lower volume that I mentioned. Finally, I guess the last important thing to note is that on the OPEB and New York State pension line, the New York State pension in particular, we had an actuarial adjustment, and you can see that we're actually down versus 2024. Let me just use the pointer here. About $19 million versus the 48. There was actually an actuarial adjustment in our favor. And if not for that actuarial adjustment, our year-to-date loss would be more like $150 million. So just something to keep in mind as we kind of bring it forward and think through what our financial performance is going to be. All right. So with that said, let's focus on 2026. Is this thing actually working? No. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. Yep. Okay, better. Perfect. All right, so switching to 2026. First of all, thanks to the governor's office, the Nassau Healthcare Corporation has been awarded $82 million this state fiscal year. We received $25 million in the month of August and expect another $57 million in the first quarter of 2026. And the funds that have come through, I mentioned the VAPAP program before, the Vital Access Provider Assurance Program. In total, we are expecting $57 million in Q1 of 2026. We're also expecting another intergovernmental transfer in the amount of $27.5 million that was related to enhanced FMAP assistance that was related to COVID emergency response. So a total of $84.6 million. And the good news is that this was not budgeted in 2026. So if you think about, and I'll go through the waterfall slide on the next slide, but we started out with a $167 million budgeted loss. That becomes an $82.5 million projected loss. That's good news, but I will say that we need to be cautious as we proceed. It's great news, actually, but we're going to be cautious as we proceed because there are, I'm sure, are going to be, items that were unexpected throughout this process. All right, so looking at the waterfall slide, this is a progression from the 2025 loss that's projected full year at $138 million, and we think that's somewhat conservative. Rich, Sam, yes. To the right of that, you have a combined $22 million year over year net expense increases. In red, in the green, you'll see that $35 million in gap closing measures built into the fiscal 26 budget. Things like reduction in expenses, revenue cycle, and so on. And in black, you'll see the $43 million right here of non-recurring items, which include $25 million in VAPAP, $9 million in FEMA grant, $8 million in actuarial adjustments, and then other grant reductions. And when you go ahead and add the $84.6 million in VAPAP, the $57 million, and the IGT at $27, you end up with the $82.5 million projected loss that we mentioned. Again, with that caveat that there are going to be variables and I would say unknowns that likely exist as we go forward. What we're working on now is not necessarily accepting the fact that we're going to have an $82.5 million deficit, but what we need to do is work through a gap closing plan to figure out how it is that we're going to resolve that issue. And of course, we're working on various fronts here. We have spend control, which I'll touch on some of this during our slides. the spend control committee. We have a position control committee, just assessing every single hire that comes through. And we have revenue cycle efforts underway. I'm looking at SAM. We have commercial insurance negotiations that are underway that haven't been done in quite some time. We're working on access and referral management improvement initiatives and overtime control. And with that said, let's take a look at the 2026 priorities and findings. This year in particular, again, this is the presentation that was provided to the board about 3 months ago as part of the CEO search. And while some of this will surely change, the framework still holds true. To the right, you can see the current situation. And again, this is 3 months old. Everybody knows that, the current situation, the going concern since 2018, the payer mix, largely government, the $1.4 billion net negative position, and considerable projected losses the next 4 years. What this speaks to me is, folks can say, wow, I'm concerned. Yes, we're concerned, but I see this as endless opportunity. And especially in speaking with all of you this past week as we continue to dig in, the priorities remain the same as what I outlined just 3 months ago. So you'll see here under the near term, the first 3 that we have, starting with communication quality and financial stewardship, all fairly basic, right? This is what anyone would do sort of coming into this type of situation. Then you get a little bit more complex, right? You talk about corporate and organizational structure, and that's where the strategy work is going to come in. We have real estate, a lot of real estate, 114 acres that we need to figure out what we're going to do with. And then payer negotiations and revenue cycle that I mentioned Sam and others are working on. And then you get into the longer term, which it's unfortunate we don't have a lot of time to spend here on this, but this is what really gets exciting to me, and it picks up on a lot of work that I started about 20 years ago. First and foremost, we need to think about affiliations, and even though this is listed as a longer-term initiative, this is something that we need to focus on very quickly. As a matter of fact, just had a discussion with the governor's office yesterday and this morning again about affiliations and our approach to that going forward and potential funding that we may get to incentivize affiliations. We also need to align government services, and what we're thinking here is, you're not just coming into the Department of Social Services for food stamps perpetually, but you're understanding the root cause of why someone needs that assistance and ultimately creating a plan around that and linking the human services and the health services, being that we're dealing with largely the same population. And then, of course, involving the community-based organizations. All right. And I promise the rest of this I will breeze through, otherwise we'll be here for hours. So communication, engagement, and accountability are going to be key in working through developing a plan that we're going to execute upon. Next, quality, safety, and experience. There is nothing, as I mentioned on Monday morning and probably multiple meetings since, there is nothing that's more important to me than all of your safety, our patient's safety, the community safety. So we need to work on updating an emergency preparedness plan, running drills, understanding, what we need to do when, frankly, it hits the fan and we need to deal with it. Because surely, that day will happen in some form or fashion, whether it's another Hurricane Sandy or, perhaps something worse. But we will be prepared, I can assure you that. Access is something that we need to very much focus on. I'm hearing 30 days for, an ambulatory care appointment, 30+% no-show rate for appointments, 2-hour waits, completely unacceptable. We need to think through that and really work through that. And as a matter of fact, I had a discussion with someone this morning from Harmony Health who was telling me that they heard about, upwards of something like 100 days. So let's work through that collectively together. Referral management I had mentioned as well. I'm actually, understanding that there are folks that are showing up here who are commercial paying patients that ultimately find their way out of the organization to some other provider. We need to work through that as well. On the quality scores, it's tough to go ahead and make some quick changes here, being that we're working on a 2-year time horizon on metrics, but we can certainly demonstrate progress. Previous leaders have communicated that, well, we have poor scores because of the population that we serve. Not buying it. We can definitely do better. There's no doubt. So financial stewardship, again, some of these things kind of go without saying. I'm just going to highlight a few things here. So spend control, you look at the graph on the right, That's just an example of some of the work that I'd previously done at Weill Cornell. The forecast, the orange line, is actually what the spend would have been historically. The actual is actually where we came out when we put a spend control committee in place. And what I'm referring to is addressing the use it or lose it approach to budgeting and spending. Kind of like how our local school districts do. Even though you have a budget and you have about $100,000 left at the end of the day, you're going to go ahead and put that fence around the schoolyard just because you have it, because you're in fear of not getting it next year. We need to think through that as a group as we go forward and act in the interest of the larger organization and not specific departments. I mentioned position control, overtime management, cash management is actually underway. These are discussions with the state, and our finance team is working diligently to project out cash not only to the end of the state fiscal year, which is March 31st, but to the end of our fiscal year, which is December 31st. We're standing up an internal audit function, and one of the things that I am very much going to be focused on, as some of you can attest, is the utilization of fixed assets. And I'm looking at Perry because we've had this conversation time and time again already, and she's probably sick of hearing it from me. But this is where, whether you're open for 8 hours a day or 18 hours a day, the cost of your equipment, your buildings is sunk, right? So to the extent that we have demand and we have the ability to see patients and we can extend hours in certain cases, probably in the ambulatory setting more than anything, it opens up tremendous opportunity. I've actually brought practices that were losing money in these cases, implemented these methodologies, and have yielded 35% profit margins. Not promising that we can do that here. We have rate challenges. We have a bunch of different issues, but we're certainly going to pursue that. So then looking forward toward functional and organizational structure. Clearly we need to assess our own organizational structure internally, just looking at our own org chart, department structure, so on and so forth. But we need to consider what the future looks like for both NUMIC, A. Holly Patterson, and then thinking about the federally qualified health centers in Harmony Health. And of course, then there's the real estate issue that I had mentioned previously, optimizing land use and addressing some of those land use restrictions. So payer negotiation and revenue cycle, really the thing to note here is that our rates that we get for the care that we provide are quite poor. We really, our Medicaid base rate is about 60% less than our peer organizations. And we are far, far below the local area hospitals. So what we need to do there is ultimately create affiliations while we're negotiating our managed care contracts and ensure that we're maximizing the return on all the work that many of you are doing here. What I will say, too, is in discussions with the governor's office, leveraging the state's safety net transformation program to establish these affiliations are going to be key. You've probably heard about the news of health and hospitals and Maimonides and how all that's coming together. We'd be pursuing a similar plan. And all options are open at this point. All right, so I'm not going to get into the weeds of this, but this was just sort of my outlook of, for 2027 in particular, what things we would be focused on, but we're doing that now. This speaks to that sort of larger, more grand vision, right, of this is what's going to get me out of bed in the morning and really jumping to come into the Nassau Healthcare Corporation, and that's linking the hospital services with the social services aspect of care for our patients, providing the wraparound services and community-based organizations involved in that process to really create multi-generational change in communities of need surrounded by the richest zip codes in the country. All right, so that was all what I had presented to the board. What we have here are really the additional findings. So these are the things that, since we had that conversation, say 3 months ago, this thing keeps cutting out, doesn't it? It's horrible. So, no, I'm good. That's good. So these are the additional findings from 3 months ago. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to touch on a few. So commercial contracts, I already mentioned, 60% below comparable hospitals. Suboptimal access that I already mentioned, that could be up to 100 days to get an appointment. We absolutely need to fix that. Referral management, fringe benefits rate. I was kind of surprised. Normal fringe benefits rate, fringe benefits over total compensation. In an organization like this, I would expect to be in the 25 to 29% range. Here it's 58%. We need to dive into that, better understand what's happening there, what's driving that, and talk about how to get it under control because it's just unsustainable. We then have deferred maintenance. I will say that I had a tour of the facilities, the infrastructure facilities, yesterday. I was shocked. Decay, broken pipes, water throughout our buildings. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And we have a $275 million capital plan that's been drafted, and we're not even close. I can tell you that's not enough. So as we go through this process of strategic planning, we have to think about what that new capital plan looks like. And I will say the $275 million that's been put together really addresses infrastructure. It does not address technology. So I'm sure all of you can appreciate when we're thinking about a new ERP system, think HR and finance, or the EMR, the electronic medical record. Those, the EMR is about 2 years from end of life. The ERP is about 4 years from end of life. They're each about $150 million a piece to go ahead and implement for this scale of an organization, having experience doing this elsewhere. So, we have plenty of challenges here. Again, just to wrap up this slide, I want to make sure that we thank the Governor's Office for the VAP app and the IGT that was previously mentioned. Also, just to focus on affiliations, coming back to that IT spend, it's about leveraging the insurance rates. It's about the IT systems. If we can affiliate with one of the major hospital systems, tagging on to an EMR or an ERP system is significantly less than going out on our own. So we need to think about that and explore the possibilities. And then, of course, there's shared services that we can think about as well. So procurement, revenue cycle, other infrastructure type services. So all that said, there's plenty of good going on as well. From what I understand, looking at the most recent reports, length of stay is down, quality efforts are underway. We're negotiating with commercial insurance companies for the first time. And we're making investments in patient experience, which really starts from employee engagement and pride. And that doesn't happen without communication. So that's what we're hoping to instill in everybody, is a sense of pride and the ability to speak and communicate, and certainly not operating under the sense of any kind of fear. And as I mentioned on Monday, that we have to start with addressing the financial plan. There's no doubt that's a huge part of this. But I think that there can be substantial progress made on a lot of these other sort of soft touch areas that I've mentioned, whether it be employee engagement, patient satisfaction, everything that kind of falls into that. And looking forward to doing that with you all. I will say that we're looking at everything as if, there's an ROI attached. And when I think about an ROI, certainly that's easy to do for finances. But, we need to think about an ROI for our patients and our employees and our community as well. And that's what we'll continue to do. And with that said, Mr. Chairman, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I think it's obvious that we have a real professional running the hospital now, and we're going to benefit from his experiences and his knowledge. Before we have the time for public comment, we have a few items. First, I really want to recognize Assemblyman Noah Burrows. Assemblyman Burrows, are you still here? There he is. Thank you for coming. He's recognizable because he's the only one wearing a tie in the whole audience. So thank you for your interest, and this is just the beginning of a dialogue with you and your colleagues on the current situation and the future of NC and HCC. Also, I think it's time for us, this is the first time, I think, to talk a little bit about the board committees. We have a very small board. It originally was supposed to be 11. It still is supposed to be 11, but some people haven't appointed the 4 of our members, so we only have 7 members. And I can't emphasize enough how grateful I am to every single member for the work and the extra burden that they are undertaking in fulfilling their fiduciary duties to you and to the institution. And so we have committees with 2 or 3 people on them focusing on different areas as the bylaws require. We have other committees, but I want to have you hear briefly from the chair people of 2 of our committees. So A, they could explain what their committees do, and B, anything else they want to add to it. So let me first begin by asking the chair of the Medical and Professional Affairs Committee, who is Dr. Lisa Newland, to take the microphone and describe what your committee does and anything else you want to add about what you've in the process of accomplishing. Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Lisa Newland, and I'm proud to serve on this committee, this Medical and Professional Affairs Committee. I'm a licensed social worker by background, and so it meets not only with my expertise and interest, but it really is an opportunity to get to learn this hospital system better and to collectively do an amazing amount of work. And so we're going to talk just a little bit about that. The board members who are on the committee with me are Amy Flores and Jason Abelow, and of course our chairperson Stuart Rabinowitz and our CEO Tom Stokes, who serves as a non-voting member of the committee. So the committee's scope and responsibility is really significant. It includes reviewing and recommending matters related to quality of care, which so many of you are concerned about by your passion and your roles that you enact here at this institution, patient safety, risk management, and medical staff, graduated medical education, and related policies and programs, as well as amendments of the medical staff bylaws and the medical staff appointments. So when we deal with credentialing issues for different persons, we are reviewing that in the committee. Over the past couple of months, the committee has drafted its charter. It was really important for us to get a sense of how we should be guided in the work that we do and to ensure that it's done from a position of governance and how to execute that. So really developing the charter, looking at past work and coming up with a charter that is going to be appropriate to this moment in time is what we focused on. As well as, so it was drafted, we're in the process of reviewing it, and we believe at our next meeting we'll be able to review and adopt it. In addition to outlining specific responsibilities, we also are looking at the process for the plans that were already developed, our patient safety plan, and I mentioned medical staff appointments. So as it relates to patient safety, we adopted the plan at our last meeting, and I just want to thank Dr. El Shanawani for her leadership and the information that was shared, as well as the work of Christine Amoroso and Katie Michaelwitz. So we thank you for your involvement in this work, and we look forward to continuing to do it collectively.
Thank you, Dr. Newell. Next, I'd like to ask the chair of the Legal and Audit Committee to make a report. Actually, there are 3 lawyers out of 7 people on your board. One of them is retired, which is me, but there's Jason and Rory. So naturally, I appointed the one non-lawyer to chair the Legal and Audit Committee to make sure that nobody dominates it, and that person is Dean Mahaltris. Dean, you want to describe what your committee does and how you keep those lawyers in check?
Not an easy task. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dean Mahaltris. My background as a clinician, I am a clinical pharmacist, having practiced for over 40 years. As an administrator, as a hospital administrator, I have served in health and hospitals as a chief operating officer for over 25 years, having retired several years ago. So I chair the Legal and Audit Compliance Committee. It's a standing committee of the Board of Directors of Nassau Healthcare Corporation, which oversees the operation of Nassau University Medical Center, A. Hallie Patterson, our medical services at the prison, and our ambulatory care network. My fellow committee members include Rory Landsman, Jason Abelow, our board chairman, Stuart Rabinowitz, and our CEO, Tom Stokes. The committee's scope of responsibility is significant, and it includes contract approvals between $50,000 and $250,000, and along with the full board, approval of contracts in excess of $250,000. We provide oversight for all legal, audit, and regulatory compliance programs and we have oversight of our insurance program, which includes our captive. So in the last 2 months, the committee has been very busy and has drafted its own charter, which outlines the specific responsibilities and obligations of the committee. We have reviewed over 60 contracts and agreements. We have selected our external auditor, which is Grant Thornton. They've been with us for a couple of years now in preparing our external financial reviews. They did the one in 2024. We were very pleased with their work, and we selected them again for 2025. We participated in a compliance program presentation by our Chief Compliance Officer. It was an excellent presentation which delved into our responsibilities in compliance adherence and in terms of the Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct. And I thank James Saunders, who joins us in that. That's James back there. James, stand up. He's wearing. So those of us who were with Health and Hospitals for many years, James included, remember wearing ties. Anyway, we also participate in the analysis and review of significant legal issues. So the committee, we had a meeting last night, for instance, and it ran the better of 2 hours because there is a lot of material and a lot of work to be done. I also want to recognize Dan Lindenberg, Dan, who's also wearing a tie, but is our he's been our support at the committee level and has been outstanding in that support. Thank you. And that's a quick synopsis, but we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we plan to spend quite a few hours burning the candle at both ends. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you for your work and thank you for your presentation. Now comes a time where we ask for public comment or questions. Nobody ever registers. Has anybody? No, it doesn't matter. But you don't have to register in order to say something or ask a question. Please direct it to me because I'm a pretty good deflector of questions. So. But don't argue. Try not to argue. Just ask a question or make a comment. And if I need somebody's help in answering or whatever, on the podium with us, I will ask. So are there any comments or questions from this distinguished audience? Well, you had your chance. Okay. I can tell you that when Tom Stokes and the rest of the administration say their doors are open, we're serious about it. And they're serious about it. So any questions that you feel more comfortable posing quietly or directly, speak to the people who are most involved in it. And we encourage you to do that. And, during the, one of our main tasks is by December 2026, we need to present a future plan which ensures the stability and the existence and enhancement of services of this safety net institution. And I can assure you that there will be many meetings and many occasions for input before any such plan is proposed to anybody, to the public and our representatives, assemblymen, and to our employees and staff. We want to be open and transparent about that. We have difficult challenges ahead. We're confident they could be met, but we all have to be, in the same boat, pulling together about it. And we want to come to that conclusion as a consensus of our team and not have it dictated from high on. So here's where I always get messed up. Do I have to make, I see, where do we make a motion to go into executive session? Is it here? Yes. So I think it's my agenda, my script says we're done with this part of the meeting. And so do we have a lot to talk about in executive session? We will come back in open session to any of you who have the patience and determination to wait for us. All I can tell you is that the committee meeting last night went from 7 to 9 p.m. So the board members here have good concentration and focus and patience. And if you do, you can wait till we come back. We hope you do. Is there a motion to go into executive session? No? Thank you. I have to read it? I now entertain it. Look, I'm a very good lawyer, and there's no reason in the world why I have to read this. But because it has a yellow next to it, I will read it. I will now entertain a motion for the directors to conduct an executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105 for the purpose of considering matters leading to appointment, employment, promotion, demotions, I hope not, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person and proposed or pending or current litigation. Is there such a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay. We'll see you later if you stay. Otherwise, thank you for coming.
Good evening. So I just wanted to mention one thing the board did in executive session. It voted on a 457F plan, which is a form of a deferred compensation plan that was essentially a ministerial act that simply effectuated the board's commitment and voted a prior meeting with respect to the CEO compensation. So that was the action, the only action taken formally in executive session. The bylaw revision, I'm sorry to have my back to you, the board. The bylaw provision in the organization's bylaws, in order to amend the bylaws, it has to be discussed at 2 meetings. This was discussed at the prior meeting. Now it is ready for a vote, and it simply effectuates a change to the law this summer where the governor formally appoints the chair and did appoint the chair to the board. And so this amendment simply incorporates that legal change.
Any discussion? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Personnel appointments. You already, what? Personnel appointments, you already, it says introduce James Saunders and Tom Stokes and thank Dr. Becker, all been done. I would like to thank and recognize somebody who has left us, Trent Gable, for his service. He's completed his term as Chief Operating Officer, and now that position is open. And is there anything else to say about personnel appointments? No. Okay. Contracts. Dan Lindenberg.
Your board packet includes a list of contracts entered into by NHCC that require board approval and have received approvals by the CEO/president and the Legal and Audit Committee. I'm going to ask for motions. Okay. Approving the resolutions for 028-2026 through 048-2026. We have a motion from, you can't second it. Oh, there's a discussion? Great. All right. The credentialing packet was distributed prior to the meeting. It included in the meeting materials. This packet is recommended for approval by both the Credentials Committee and the Medical and Professional Affairs Committee. This is Resolution 027-2026. I'm going to ask for motions.
Oh, I thought we were credentials. I thought we were doing credentials. I thought those were the contracts that we just voted for. No. We did both of those together? You get what you get when you get an 80-year-old chair. Is there a motion? Aren't you glad you all stayed for this? So exciting for us to report on this. So is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, thank you. Second, all in favor? See you next time in March. Oh, February.